It's Wednesday, the 26th of May, 2021. Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Headlines, the business news you need in just 5 minutes. I'm Sean Aylmer. In today's headlines, Australia records one of its largest trade surpluses ever, but there are signs the best for commodities might be over. Plus, banks lead the local share market higher, another 5 cases of COVID-19 in Melbourne triggers lockdowns and travel bans, and one of the year's biggest IPOs disappoints. Our lead story today, Australia's exports of goods, including iron ore and coal, hit a record $36 billion last month, but the best might be over with commodity prices falling sharply in recent days. The price of iron ore has fallen from $230 a tonne last week to $180 a tonne, a sharp drop though the price of the commodity remains elevated. Commodity prices have surged over recent months as the global economy recovered along with the rollout of COVID vaccines. Australia has particularly benefited from record iron ore prices, spurred on by huge demand from China's factories and a lack of competition in the global market due to supply problems out of Brazil. The fall in recent sessions followed China pledging punishment if commodity prices kept rising, blaming the increases on everything from excessive speculation and hoarding to spreading fake news. Copper, another big export for Australia, has also been affected by China's efforts to manage prices. Oil prices are trading above the average over the past 5 years, though well below the peaks of 7 years ago. And while the price of gold rose overnight, it remains well below levels of last year. The exceptions are coal prices, which have surged and are double the level of 9 months ago. The downward shift in prices comes as Australian Bureau of Statistics figures show a trade surplus of $10 billion for April, the third highest on record. No one is calling an end to the commodities boom yet, but China is working hard to reduce prices, and some of the enthusiasm has come out of commodities markets. It's already harmed miners, and notwithstanding the booming trade surplus last month, it will also hurt the Australian economy. In overseas news, the Chinese currency, the renminbi, has hit a 3-year high against the US dollar. It came as the country's major share market in Shanghai had its best day since last July. A higher renminbi reflects the strong Chinese economy. It makes it relatively cheaper to buy commodities, but it also makes China less competitive on the world stage, creating a conundrum for Beijing. The biggest story in Europe at the moment is about the hijacking of a Ryanair flight from Athens to Vilnius in Lithuania, which was forced to land in Minsk, the capital of Belarus. A passenger on the flight, Roman Protasevich, who is a journalist and opposition activist, was removed from the flight and arrested. The hijacking of a commercial flight has triggered condemnation from the United Nations, North America and Europe, and the European Union has imposed sanctions and flight blockades of Belarus. And the British government is telling people to avoid travelling to coronavirus hotspots in the country where the Indian variant is spreading. It comes as Prime Minister Boris Johnson is pushing to reopen the economy after 3 lockdowns. The UK has one of the most successful vaccine rollouts, with 70% of the population now having received at least 1 jab. Meanwhile, data from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention in the US show that COVID-19 cases in fully vaccinated people is rare. Locally, there were 5 community-transmitted cases of COVID-19 recorded in Melbourne yesterday, all linked to the 4 cases from the previous day, and all in one family. The strain of coronavirus is the highly contagious Indian strain and has been linked back to Adelaide hotel quarantine. One of the people that tested positive yesterday attended a football game at the MCG on Sunday. Restrictions were introduced on Greater Melbourne last night. Masks are compulsory indoors, household visitors are capped to 5 per day, and social gatherings are limited to 30. A decision on crowds at football and cultural events hasn't been made yet. South Australia has introduced some restrictions on movements of people from areas of Melbourne into the state, and New Zealand has closed its border to Victoria for the next 3 days. The S&P ASX 200 enjoyed its second strong trading session in a row yesterday, closing up 1% to 7,115 points. It was the highest close in more than a fortnight, and the index is now less than 1% off its all-time high. All the major banks did well. ANZ led the way, rising 1%. Commonwealth Bank hit another record, finishing 0.9% higher to $99.63. The banks have been among the strongest performers of the top 200 over the past 12 months. In fact, of the top 60 companies, only Afterpay, Domino's and BlueScope Steel have done better than the big 4 banks over the past year. That's a remarkable turnaround from the middle of the pandemic. Southeast Queensland was hit by a huge power outage yesterday afternoon, with 400,000 homes and multiple coal power units offline. A fire in a power station in central Queensland caused the outage. Obviously, it was a major inconvenience to many Queenslanders, but to me the most amazing thing, and I have this fact courtesy of the Financial Review, is that wholesale prices in Queensland spiked to above $2,500 a megawatt hour mid-afternoon. In New South Wales, the price at the same time was $18.56. And Pepper Money hit the bourse yesterday in one of the year's most anticipated floats. It was somewhat underwhelming, with shares in the group ending at $2.61, down from their listing price of $2.89. The group raised $500 million, valuing the company at more than $1 billion. That's the Fear and Greed business headlines for today. Make sure you hit follow so you get it every morning. And if you'd like more detail and more stories, search for our longer daily podcast called Fear and Greed. We also release a daily interview. Today we're talking about one of the hottest sectors in financial markets, ethical investing. I'll be back later with the afternoon market report. I'm Sean Aylmer. Have a great day.